Hey guys, what's up? Aaron Perez here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're gonna go through our second installment of how to punt a football, and we're gonna be talking about the grip. If you haven't seen the first video that I went over footwork, the little I right here, should be right here, will be popping up, and you can check that out after this video. We go over everything about footwork, how many steps to take, etc. But in today's video, we're gonna be going over grip. So let's remember, guys, that these videos are geared towards beginners and guys that are trying to rebrush up on certain techniques that we'll be going over through this series. So remember, my job and my goal is to explain this to you in a very kind of elementary, basic way, so beginning punters, guys that are, again, just learning the craft, can understand it very simply. So today's video, we're gonna go through in 4 parts. Part 1 is gonna be a basic introduction to how the ball should look when it's hitting your foot, so that we can get a better understanding of how it should be in our grip when we're holding the football. Part 2 will just be the basics of how to find a grip that works for you and how you can figure out where to put your hand on the football. After that, I'll give you a couple examples of professional punters, both pictures of how they grip the ball and then some footage of them punting so you can see how the ball falls out of their hand onto their foot. And then part 4 will be some basic common mistakes that people will make when choosing a grip, or when they're trying to figure out how to put their hand on the ball for their grip. Common things that might happen to look out for as you're beginning to learn how to perfect your grip on the football. And then the last part of all of it will re-summarize the information and make sure that you guys understand everything. And then again, I'll say it here and I'll say it again at the end. If you ever have questions, please leave it in the comments below. My socials will be somewhere on the screen here, that you guys can contact me via Instagram and Twitter, things of that sort. But again, let's get to the video, boys. So like I said, part 1 is going to be how the ball should hit your foot. And the reason this is important is because it gives you an indication of how the ball should be in your hand. To make it very simple for you guys, the goal of a grip is to hold the ball in your hand the way you want it to hit your foot. So you guys, the ball should be hitting our foot, and what I like to teach is this. The ball should be hitting our foot with the nose ever so slightly down, ever so slightly in, and the laces slightly off to the side. Okay, again, ever so slightly down, ever so slightly in, and laces off to the side. To give you just a slightly better idea, you can turn the nose towards 11 o'clock. If you're looking at the ball, if you're a left footer, it can be towards 1 o'clock. Never more than 10 or 2. We don't want to turn the nose in too much. And the laces should be off to the side. And I'll talk about that in part 2 as to why that's important. Here's a good clip of the ball sitting on the foot properly. So now that we've gone through part 1 of how the football should be hitting our foot, part 2 is how do I find my grip and what's the most basic way I can learn to grip a football. What I like to teach guys is middle finger on the side seam, and then rest your hand on the ball around it. Middle finger on the side seam gives us a landmark. And by landmark, all I mean is when you catch the snap, you can find somewhere to put your hand so you're not going in blind. Once you have your middle finger on the side seam, your thumb will be on the other side of the top seam. I'll show a couple clips of that. The rest of your fingers will lay on the ball pretty evenly, and then you will set the ball with the nose in, nose slightly down, and laces slightly off to the side. Now, once you have your grip on the ball and you're holding the ball, the reason I had mentioned in part 1 that we want our laces slightly off to the side is that will allow 2 things. 1, our thumb to do a little bit of less work, which I'll talk about why that's bad in part 4 of common mistakes. But also it allows for a slightly easier release off the ball with our hand so that you're not trying to time popping your hand off like so. So again, once you find the middle finger, the laces are slightly off to the side with the nose slightly down and nose slightly in. finding your grip from there is pretty simple. The last thing I'll say is, you guys, if you like and find that your finger should be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, that's no problem. The number one most important thing is that you're comfortable and that you find the grip easy to get to when you're training. So for part 3, I thought it'd be kind of cool for you guys to see a couple examples of professional punters and how they grip the ball in both a picture and in a video. So the first example is my boy Colby Wadman. Colby is the current punter for the Denver Broncos. And in the 2 pictures here, you can see basically how his hand gets on the ball. Colby goes middle finger on the seam. The rest of his hand goes on. And you can see a couple examples here. And then I'll roll a video of him punting as well. It should be pretty simple to see that his hand releases off the ball pretty consistently. The second example is Jake Bailey. Jake played at Stanford. Him and I have worked together since high school, and he is now currently with the New England Patriots. And you can see he likes his hand a little bit higher, so he may put a little bit more middle finger above the seam, but you can kind of see an example of the way his hand sits on the ball on the side, and then how it releases off nice and easy. And the third example is Jamie Gillen. Jamie went to Pine Bluff, born and raised in Scotland. So he holds the ball a little bit more unorthodox. He has more of a top of the ball grip, but you can see from his picture here that he puts his hand a little more above, similar to Jake. And then you can see the way his hand comes off the ball in a video. So now that you've seen a couple examples, you guys, and I use the professionals because, again, they're at the highest level of our sport, of our position, and I always think it's cool for you guys to get an idea of when you're watching a professional guy do it, their hand goes on the ball the same way that I'm kind of teaching you guys. I think it's kind of cool to see that, and they do it obviously at a very high level. But for part 4, what I'd like to go through is common mistakes that you may make in your grip, and a couple things to look out for if your ball's coming out a little funny. Number 1 is paying attention to the nose of the football. And by the nose of the football, I mean the front. Most common mistakes that you'll see is the nose either turning too much in or going too far down or up. Too far in is typically when the thumb is doing too much work, so it's squeezing a little much, okay? And what'll happen is if the thumb's doing too much work and it kind of pushes the ball in on the way down, an easy way to fix that is simply just making sure the laces are off to the side so that your thumb is doing less work. You'll find that this is a problem if the laces get too far on top, your thumb is squeezing too hard, and the nose will come in. For too far up or down, the basic idea, you guys, is just, again, we want to keep the nose ever so slightly down. A common mistake I'll see in grips is guys either hold the ball with it pointing too far up or hold it with it pointing too far down. Again, if this is a football and this is perfectly flat, I'd like your nose to be ever so slightly down if this is the front of the ball, okay? Not too far up and not too far down. So make sure in your grip you're holding it so the nose is in that perfect position of slightly in and slightly down. The last part is, guys, you want to make sure that your wrist has no sort of bending or flexion in it. When we're finding our grip, you guys, you just want it to be very simple to get to, and you also want your hand to be very natural. So any sort of movement or flexion of your wrist here, guys, is going to be bad because it's going to cause inconsistencies in your drop in terms of the ball moving, and it's also just going to be a little bit harder to get to, right? If I'm catching a snap and I'm trying to find this with my wrist at a perfect, bend back here, that can just really be a problem for consistency. So as you're finding your grip, make sure that we're trying to get our wrist as relaxed as possible, as fluid as possible, and you don't have too much movement in and around the wrist. All right, guys, so to summarize the video, we went over in part 1 how we want the ball to hit our foot, which is, again, with the nose ever so slightly down, in, and laces a little bit off to the side. In part 2, we went over how to find your grip. Again, start with your middle finger on the side seam. If you're right-handed, it'll be on your right side. If you're left-handed, it'll be on your left side. But start with your middle finger on the side seam, and you can kind of go from there if you like your hands a little bit higher or a little bit lower. But start there with the rest of your fingers on the ball. For part 3, I showed you some examples of very high level guys and how they grip the ball, and just wanted to give you guys a little bit better example of it being done at a very high level. And then for part 4, we just went over common mistakes, things to look out for, whether it being the nose, coming too far in or too far up or down. Again, if you guys have any specific questions on your grip, or you find that your ball's doing something a little funky, make sure to leave it down in the comments below, and I'll make sure to interact with you guys, and we can kind of go over something that might pertain a little more specifically to you. But again, you guys, I want to thank you for watching this. I want to thank you for being a part of this journey, and also just watching this series and giving me great feedback. This is geared for more beginning guys and guys trying to rebrush up on their grip if they're struggling with something in the meantime. But again, I really think these videos are a lot of fun, and I want to make sure that you guys are on your path and on the way to becoming better, more consistent punters. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to all my socials. Again, leave me any feedback, leave a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching this video, guys. To continue along with this journey and watch this channel grow, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel.